The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
There's a beautiful story about Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, the Rishon L'Tzion, tremendous Talmid Chacham, a very bright and amazing Gadol B'Yisrael. One time, as the Rav Arashi, he was part of the contingent that was brought to Natbag, to the Ben Gurion airport, and they were given a tour of Ben Gurion. I don't know the context, but he was part of this tour. You can only imagine the Rishon L'Tzion, his Shmeina Begudim, his special colorful clothing, and he comes and he was part of it. As they're walking on the tarmac, the Menahel, the director of Ben Gurion Airport, says to him, Kvod Harav, shai lishol sheila. Can I ask a question? Bechlet. He says, of course you can ask a question. What's the question? He says, Lama za, why is it that the Rabbanim feel that they could tell the Hamon Am what to do? Why is it that when someone has a dilemma or a question, they can't just follow what they think? Why does the Rav think that he's better, or he has a better understanding of where they're at in their life, that he has a right to even guide them and direct them? It doesn't work that way. So Mordechai Eliyahu says, listen, the Rav has a perspective that brings the Torah. He has a different perspective from the person. So this Menahel, this director, wasn't moved at all. He goes, well, that's his perspective, and he's entitled to his perspective, and I have my life, and I have my perspective, and I'll follow it. And Mordechai Eliyahu smiled, and he said to him, tough, wait. Have patience, you'll understand. Later in the tour, they took the entourage to the observation deck, 15 stories into the air, you could see it when you land in Ben Gurion Airport. And they brought them up to the top of the observation deck, and then an incredible view of the entire airport, of the different terminals and the airplanes. And all of a sudden, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says, Yesh li sheila. He turns to the director of the airport and he says, I have a question. The guy's like, all excited. Oh, right, he's interested, I guess. He says, I want to ask you a question. What's the job of the people that work here in the observation deck, the air traffic controllers? He says, what do you mean, what's their job? They're the most important job in the whole airport. They make sure that when one plane lands, there's no plane there on the runway. And when a plane takes off, that there isn't another plane coming. This is one of the most important jobs that they have. So Rav Mordechai Eliyahu says, I have a question. Let's say a guy's a pilot and, air traffic controller tells him, we want you to take runway A. But he happens to see that there's no one on runway B. He's entitled, right, to take runway B? So Menahel, the director, says, Chas v'shalom, are you crazy? He can't make his own decisions. If people make their own decisions, unilaterally, there could be terrible accidents. Maybe he doesn't realize that a plane's going to be there in a second, or it's coming from a different direction. He doesn't see it. Only the guy in the air traffic controller that sees from above, he sees the whole picture, he's the one that could give the directive. And Mordechai Eliyahu says, Tishma aznecha ma she'ata motzeh mipicha. Listen with your own ears what you just said. The person who's sitting in the observation deck has a very different perspective, because he doesn't just see one runway, he sees the entire runway. That's why when you go to a Rav, he sees things differently. He sees the whole Kehillah. Maybe he sees a little broader. He sees Klal Yisrael. He comes from a perspective that's multidimensional. There are thousands of stories about Reb Chaim Kanievsky and advice that he gave which seemed so strange and out of the pale, but always came true. Just one small snippet happened literally as COVID was coming in. Remember, we had that Purim, and then all of a sudden there was the Seger where the whole entire country shuts down. So when they were in the interim, right before COVID was becoming a reality in Israel, a little before everybody else in the world, there was talk about a seger, about an absolute shutdown of the country. And there was a particular family that was supposed to make a chasna on Sunday. It was earlier in the week, so next Sunday. And they were very friendly with one of the Chavrei Knesset, one of the members of parliament, who told them, don't worry about it, because if we shut down, we're definitely not shutting down until Monday. I was at the Knesset meetings, we met with the Sar Briut and everyone, etc., etc. So they went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky to get a bracha for the chasna. And Reb Chaim says, when's the chasna? They said, it's next week Sunday. Reb Chaim said, make the chasna on Thursday, 3 days earlier. So, but Rebbe, we have an inside information in the Knesset. He says, Yom Chamishi, Thursday, no later. They listened to their credit. Reb Chaim changed the whole thing, and they had the chasna on that Thursday. That Thursday night, the Knesset had an emergency meeting and shut the whole country down. The Gedolim see things from the observation deck. The Gedolim see things from the flight tower, from the flight control tower. They see things from a different perspective. About 5 years ago, I was looking for a summer job. My mishpacha needed the income, and it was the right time. And I was offered an incredible job, being the Menal Ruchni, the spiritual director of a particular program. The pay was very, very substantial, and I'd be able to spend 1 month at this program and then 1 month with my mishpacha. I would not be able to be with my family. My family would not be part of this, but they worked around it. It was a very amenable type of job. And like I said before, the salary was extremely high. But there was an issue with the program. Hashkafically, it wasn't my hashkafa, and there were certain concessions that maybe I would have to make, but to bring the students up, to bring the campers up, not chas v'shalom, to bring myself down, hopefully. But I didn't want to make this decision by myself. So I called Reb Shmuel Kamenetsky, who at that period of time I would call very often, to ask him for hadracha and to ask him hashkafic questions and halacha questions. And Reb Shmuel listened to me carefully and he says, I don't like it. I don't like it. I said, but Rebbe, I've been involved with these type of programs and you yourself encouraged me to be part of them. He says, I don't like it. Look elsewhere. I said, but Rebbe, I need the parnasa and it's almost the summer. He says, it's not the right thing. If you're supposed to have the parnasa, the Rebbe Shalom will provide. Don't worry. And I remember saying, okay, I'm a kabel, and I was, but it really bothered me. I was excited about this program. The money was there. Just everything about it, I think, was a tremendous opportunity, I thought, to be matzliach in a ruchniistic, in a spiritual way, and to bring... And I was disappointed, I'm going to be honest. But as a day or 2, 3 passed, I kind of said to myself, so do you have emunah in Das Torah? Do you truly trust the manhigei ha'am? And then I kind of came to peace with myself. Literally, I think it was that week, my phone rings, and an old friend of mine calls me up and says to me, I have an incredible opportunity for you, working in a summer program, which was amazing for my family. It was a full summer. It was 1,000,000 times better than the previous program. And Baruch Hashem, we took it and had tremendous hatzlacha, and we're there for a bunch of years. When you listen to the Gedalim, they know better. The pilot can't decide that he wants to go on runway A. It's the guy in the air traffic control. He understands a much greater picture. A person who, Asher Ruach Ba, he understands where we're coming from. And there's a personal story. I realize the importance of Amadig and also the importance of Das Torah. We'll conclude with an incredible story that I heard directly from the person that the story happened to. This particular fellow, he told me the story himself, that went to Rabbi Yashiv. Anyantiv, he's an American fellow. He was there with his family, and he went to Rabbi Yashiv, I think it was on Sukkot, and maybe it was right after Sukkot, to get a bracha. And he got a personal audience with Rabbi Yashiv. He was a well-connected fellow. And Rabbi Yashiv sat there, listened to them, and gave them a beautiful bracha. Right when they're getting up, Rabbi Yashiv looks at the family and he says, Sheva bracha natzlacha and refuah shalema. The fellow looks at Rabbi Yashiv, refuah shalema, everyone's okay. Yeah, Rabbi Yashiv says, refuah shalema. They didn't know what Rabbi Yashiv was saying, and they laughed and totally forgot about this incident. A little while later, substantial time later, the mother in the family was diagnosed with a particular illness. And when she was diagnosed, the doctors did biopsies and whatever they do, and they realized that this particular growth had been there already for quite a period of time, and probably it started right around the time when they went to Rabbi Yashiv. It means Rabbi Yashiv somehow sensed and felt that this person needed a refuah, they needed a Yeshua. Because when you're a person who Isha Sharuach Ba, they have their Rebbe Shalom perspective in them, they see things in such a different way. And this is our choice as Bnei Yisrael, as part of Adas Yisrael, part of Klal Yisrael. Even though Partzufein are not Sheva, we don't have the same perspectives, and each of us has our own unique experience. But we all have to try really hard to find a Gadol, to find a Manig, to find a Rav, to find somebody who we can totally speak to openly and then follow with confidence what they say. Because as Moshe Rabbeinu realized, the future of Klal Yisrael is dependent upon it. And our individual futures are dependent upon that as well.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org